Hey everyone, welcome to episode 69 of PixlFeed Radio, and I'm here with my friend Jude Charles. Jude, how you doing, man?
I am doing well, Christian. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely, man. A fellow South Floridian in the house.
Yeah. I love it.
He sent me, you sent me some of your stuff yesterday. And I was like, I know exactly where that's at. That's where I'm at. Well, right now I'm not there, but I go back and forth. And I was just telling you before, I was telling him before we got started, I was like, man, I can't wait to be out there again when this whole COVID thing is over. But
yeah.
Let's talk about a little bit about your story, man. For those of you that don't know, Jude, he's a filmmaker, story-driven filmmaker, brand strategist and speaker, and he's been doing this for over 15 years. I've seen some of his stuff. Obviously, he sent me one of the newest ones yesterday, which was a doc called Relentless, which is the story of Tracy Lynn. And man, I was mesmerized by it, the way it was shot, and then obviously when you recognize everything makes it even better. But her story, it's so funny. I'm working on a brand right now that I launched with a partner back in October, and it's exactly the same plan from the beginning, how it started and how it's mapping out. I even messaged her, like 10 minutes into it when she's like telling her part, kind of spoiler alert, but she said the part she was selling at church. And it's like, well, why don't I work with all these people and then build a team? I'm like, that's exactly what we're doing. I tell people this all the time. So that was really cool to see. And I'm sure we're going to put all the links in the description below for everything. So you guys can check it out, but I highly recommend you watch it. And, but before we get into the whole filmmaking, storytelling, I did go to film school for a year after high school, but I wouldn't call myself a filmmaker at all because I haven't done it in like so many years. And then I was editing when I had an editing bay with the beta tapes and all that, and I don't remember what they were called.
That is So that is throwback. Beta tapes. Many people probably don't even know what beta tapes are. But
it was we had the old school. Was it beta? I think it was beta when we were in the editing bay. Obviously VHS, but beta tapes, and then literally right after that, it's when digital started to take off, and then I was completely out of it. So, but it was fun, man. Some of the best times we had, my best friend and I was in the editing room in high school and college, just sitting there. We will always have, I remember we always had music going on, in the studio. And then at the time, dude, every time I hear Bone Thugs, like for some reason, it's like, it just takes me back to one day we were there editing a bunch of stuff. And we used to watch South Park. When South Park was a big deal when it first came out, we used to watch. It's like, dude, you guys got to watch this. So anyway, so let's get into your story, man. So how did you get into filmmaking? How did it all start?
Sure. So I went to school at Blanche Ely High School in Pompano Beach. So born and raised in Pompano Beach. And I had a TV production teacher, Mrs. Donnelly, who she saw something in me and she decided to teach me everything that she knew about video production.
That's cool.
And I'll never forget the day, May 4th, 2006. She walks up to me and she says, Jude, you're really, really talented at video production. I think you should start a business. So I'm the last of 10 children.
Wow.
And no one in my family are entrepreneurs. So I didn't know anything about being an entrepreneur, starting a business or anything like that.
So mom and dad, no entrepreneurial background, no one in the family whatsoever?
My father was a construction worker. My mom worked at a chair factory. So the following day, May 5th, 2006, Mrs. Donnelly came into the classroom. She handed me a yellow envelope, and inside of the yellow envelope was my first set of business cards. And because we're doing video, I can actually show you because I still have the very first business card that she had ever given me. And
that's so cool, man.
Yeah. And so awesome. That's how I got started. May 5th, 2006. I started the business because she gave me the courage. Because of those business cards, it gave me the courage to start the business. And at the time, I was only filming like birthday parties, small weddings, nothing major. But that's how I got started. That's how I began storytelling.
That is so cool. And again, like I watched, the first part of I'm going to finish it. The first part of Relentless yesterday. And the way it's shot and the way the storytelling between it and just the angles in the shot it's perfect, man. It's really good. I wasn't expecting that high of a production when I got it. I'm like, holy crap, man. This is this is good movie. So that's So you started, with small parties and stuff. So how did you grow the business back then? Like, what was it? How did you get clients? Was it referrals? Did you go out there productively and like talk to people and all that?
Yeah.
I mean, South Florida, it's a very competitive market when it comes to everything. Everybody wants to live there. So it's like, you got a lot of everything. I guess you could say.
It's a competitive market and there's always a lot going on. I think after the first couple of years of doing like small events, I really wanted to break into bigger, because I was getting paid like maybe $500, $600 per event, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not a lot of money. So I wanted to break into a bigger market. And what I started doing, because we live in South Florida, Miami, it's entertainment city. So I started filming at, I started filming for MTV, like behind the scenes of music videos and doing different entertainment things. But what it led to was me meeting Kisha Dor. She's known as Kisha Dor now, but back then she was Kisha Dor. And she was the very first client I ever did a documentary series for. She was starting her business from the ground up, a cosmetic business. And she wanted to document the whole journey of like starting this business from the ground up. And we did that the very first year of her launching the docuseries with her business. She was able to make $1 million. And that's when I knew I had something special, that I needed to go down this route of helping entrepreneurs tell their story, because if they understand how to tell their story, then they'll understand how to make more money in their business as well. And so that's really how I got like just transitioning into doing docuseries for entrepreneurs. It was because of continuing to meet with people. Everything came through referrals at that time. It's still
talk about niching down, man. Riches are in the niches. I mean,
they are in the niches for sure.
Crazy.
Yeah. And so everything came through referral, and it was someone that knew Kisha wanted to have someone document her journey, that knew me and introduced us. And because of that, that's how I ended up working with Kisha for 3 years.
And not only that, you get a first point of view to like these successful people, women, men, everything. And like watching them grow a business from I mean, that's like a freaking PhD,
it's the one thing that I love about what I do. So I'll tell you a quick it's not a fun story, but it's a quick story. The day that I found out Kisha made $1 million was the same day that I woke up at 7:00 in the morning, and I woke up to the sounds of chains hitting the floor. And it was always a nightmare for me to wake up hearing these chains hitting the floor. What it was, when I ran outside to see what it was a tow truck driver coming to repossess my car for the second time in 8 months.
Oh, man.
And then I come back in the house and I get the phone call from Kisha, and she's telling me she made $1 million. Like, she just got off the phone with her accountant and she's made $1 million. And I'm looking at my phone like, is this real life right now?
Like, she's telling me she made $1 million and my car is about to get repo. Like, I heard my car like that. I mean, I can only imagine the feeling.
And for context, like, she made $1 million off of the documentary. She had put out part 1 of the documentary, and she made $1 million. What I had made off of part 1 was only $3,000. And so, it was a light bulb moment for me, though, because you talk about seeing the behind the scenes of these entrepreneurs building big businesses. Yeah. It was a light bulb moment that I had the blueprint all along.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I got to see Kisha for that first year every single day, what she was doing in her business. And I wasn't doing the same thing. We weren't selling the same thing. She was selling lipsticks and cosmetics, but it was still business is business. Marketing is marketing. And I had the blueprint all along. And that's what helped me really change things around to where I do only take 5 clients a year at this point, producing docuseries for them and making 6 figures.
So back then, what year is this, the Kisha one?
2010. 2010 is when we started working together to 2013. So when she made the $1 million, it was 2011.
Okay. So 2010. So where is she putting this documentary on?
YouTube.
On YouTube back then, so way ahead. I mean, way ahead of its time.
She was only using YouTube for videos, but then Twitter is where she would promote it every single day.
Right.
That was the only thing she was using. Facebook was out then, but she wasn't using it. Instagram wasn't out yet, but Facebook was out then. And she just stuck to one platform, which was Twitter.
Yeah. That's what I tell people all the time. Pick one and just stick to it, man.
Yep. And she was on there every single day. She was always interacting with her fans. She still does till this day. Like, she's always responding one-on-one to her fans, in building that relationship. And that's what really helped. Not only helped her go from 0 to $1 million in 12 months, but just getting people to see the documentary. It was literally just posting it almost every single day on Twitter, along with a couple other strategies, but mainly it was just Twitter.
Like I tell some of my clients, the ones that are like corporate clients, they got everything because they have the people to handle everything. But like the ones that are like in between, I go, listen, pick one and stick to it.
Yep.
People ask me all the time, like, well, you push TikTok all the time, but you're not even doing it. I'm like, dude, I don't have time for TikTok. Two, that is not my platform. Like,
yeah.
For me to make a TikTok, it will take me like literally at least an hour to just edit it on my phone, like, and then coming up with the idea and trying to condense it into 15 seconds to a minute of this stuff. It just, there's people that can do it. I've seen them and they do a great job. But for me, it's YouTube. Like I can just talk and it can be 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 5 minutes. There's no restrictions for me. I don't need all the quick editing and all that stuff. I got to show you something and talk about it, and that's it.
Yep.
So I tell people all the time, like, stick to one platform. And once that platform blows up all the way, then you can hire somebody else to take care of the other platforms. And you just, you can chop up the content and put it out there. This, you can just edit a bunch of stuff, which way you want. So not only are you getting like a first view education of everything that's going on, but you're also seeing like the struggle. Like everybody sees the success, but not all the shit that we go through. Like, when I'm watching that documentary, I see the baller house that, what's her name, that Tracy has in the middle of the aisles. It's probably like Fiesta aisle or something right there close to Las Olas. And it's like, I've seen those houses, but then once you start like, what did she go through to get there? And then you start hearing the story. It's like, man, everybody goes through that. But people, she even said it in the first part. She's like, people only see this part and they don't see what it took to get here. And it's that's why I wanted to put it out there. And I want to meet her. I love her, man. She's awesome.
I'll tell you what, the fascinating thing is the struggle doesn't stop just because you've made a lot of money. So you're talking about Tracy Lynn's Relentless docuseries. There's a reason why we call it Relentless. So there's something that happens in part 4. I'm not going to spoil it.
Yeah, don't tell me.
Something that happens in part 4 that puts her at risk of possibly losing her entire business that she had built for 20 years.
Wow.
And that's not exaggeration. Like, and we show it and we talk through what exactly it is, but the struggle doesn't stop just because you've made a lot of money, you've reached a lot of success. I haven't worked with this other entrepreneur, but Grant Cardone recently was on Undercover Billionaire, right? And he had to learn how to build a $1 million business in 90 days. And like, I haven't seen a lot of the episodes, but there's like one episode where he's crying because he's like, I don't think I really remember how hard it was to build a business from the ground up. Here's a guy who has it all.
Yeah, he's a great marketer.
And he's broken down to like, man, this is really hard, and people don't understand like the level of mindset that it takes to be an entrepreneur. You've got to be crazy. You've got to be a little crazy.
Listen, man, I tell people all the time, like I had a roller coaster in my life. I lost everything in 2010 when the economy crashed. Worked for other people until I figure out what I wanted to do in my life. Meanwhile, my college dropout, but then I will go apply for jobs, and it was either you're too overqualified or you don't have a college degree, but I have the qualifications. Like, it made no sense, so I was like, but I didn't want to start a business again just to start a business because
it's hard.
I always tell people, don't start a business out of desperation, man. Like you start a business when you have the idea and you have like the goal in mind of what you're going to do. And at that moment, I was just like, after the 2010 crash, I was just like, I just need to make as much money as I can as quickly as possible so I can do something with that money. And the quickest way to do that is sales. I know how to sell. So I knew if I got a job in sales, I'll be okay. And I did sales and came back and grabbed that money and started investing in myself. And here we are again. But it's a roller coaster, man. I used to look at my friends. I told this story before, and they're all coming up in their careers and they're all getting better, growing in their careers. And I'm just like, man, I was up there. Now I'm down here. Now I got to get back up there again. I'm a very competitive person and it sucks, but I tell people, it's like, unless you're built for it, unless that's what you are. I don't care how many motivational videos you watch. I don't care how many motivational quotes you see. I don't care how many books you read. If it's not in you, you're not going to make it, because I think Elon Musk said it best. It's like chewing glass. It really is, because you're up and then you got to deal with something or something else happens. Like I tell people all the time, my day consists of waking up. It's like, what am I going to deal with today? What kind of shit is going to come up my way that I have to deal with? And then, but then you have the good moments of like, you know, sales and the product you release and it does really well. And those are the happy moments. But I mean, all day long, it's just dealing with stuff left and right all day long. And I tell people all the time too, it's like, dude, I work 12-hour days, 16-hour days sometimes, you know, sometimes very rarely it'll be like, you know, 8 hours, you know, Saturday and Sunday. I check all my emails, I check all my accounts, I check everything. It never stops. But it doesn't bother me because I love what I do, you know.
Right.
And then,
And you've got to have that passion. You've got to love it. Like if you don't love it, you won't be able to continue. Right.
Yeah. I had a friend.
I've been in business for 15 years, and the only reason I've still been in business for 15 years is because I love what I do every morning.
Right. You wake up.
It's not easy, especially with the level of clients that I work with. Getting to that level, like I didn't start there, obviously. Kisha wasn't a millionaire when I started with her.
Yeah.
But getting to that level, it's like it does take a level of relentlessness, right? To get to that point where you're not going to give up even when you reach an obstacle. Right. And so, yeah, you've got to love it every single day.
Dude, look at you know, obviously all the great people that we know. Like, I was just reading an article with JayZ. Like JayZ just sold what was the music business? Tidal?
Yep.
For like another insane amount of money. Like, talk about a story, man. JayZ's story, it's like, if you know his story, it's amazing. I mean, from like selling drugs to creating Rockefeller Records, and then, you know, just building a freaking empire, man. It's just, the guy's so smart. Like, he cut a deal with Ace of Spades, and Ace of Spades was nothing, which is a champagne. And then he's like, okay, I'll cut a deal. And then he started putting his music videos and like at the club, and that's how he became popular. And then sales went through the roof. Like, it's, you got to be built for it, right?
You have to. And I think it's not only that you have to be built for it, but like, if you can't get out of your own way to realize like what you really want is going to take work. Otherwise, it's like the old saying, like if it was easy, everybody would be doing it.
Right.
The reason that JayZ got to the level of where he is because when every label told him, no, we don't want your music, he created his own.
Yeah.
At a time that people weren't doing that.
Yeah, we didn't have Pro Tools and like, you know, all social media and all that stuff. He had to do a record label for real, like
for real, without all of that stuff. Like he had to be able to create music and create a studio and then get the music heard by different people in order to build an audience. Like he didn't have all the tools we have today.
No, he was like Master P selling CDs out of the trunk of his car at other people's shows.
Yeah,
it's crazy, dude.
Yeah, and that you've got to have that drive to realize, like, as just one no on a line of 1,000 other no's, but you're gonna get another 1,000 yeses too if you just continue the route.
Yeah, I tell my wife all the time, like, I'd rather be homeless in the middle of the street than work for somebody else ever again. Like, I did it when I had to, you know, because I did, but I hated every minute of it. I really did. But I knew I needed to do it to get some cash in my hands so I could make something out of it.
Yep, you needed momentum.
Yeah, but I mean, I think about people all the time. I'm like, you know, we all know people that hate their jobs, or you go somewhere and you're buying something, whether it's retail or food or something. And sometimes you can tell that the person there is just like, they're hating their day, man. I've been there, so I get it. And I try to be as nice as I can be, but you know, and I'm like, there's ways to get out of this, but at the same time, not everybody can do it. Not everybody can do it. So it's like they're in a prison, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
absolutely.
It makes me sad. It really does. But so when all right, so you did the documentary with we got a little sidetracked there with Kisha. And you can tell I love this stuff. So how did it go? So she made all this money. That was, you know, one of your first major clients, and obviously she puts everything out there on YouTube, Twitter world, and obviously your name's on the credits.
Yep.
So I'm assuming people just start hitting you up after that. How does it go?
It wasn't a lot in the beginning, but yes, so right after Kisha, I worked with an interior designer in South Florida who saw Kisha's documentary series and wanted to find out how could I create something similar for him, because he was in a niche. He was in a niche where he only worked with clients who they have homes in South Florida, but they're on like second or third home. They don't live here, but they want to be able to hand over the keys to someone and say, hey, you take over the project and remodel the entire house. But it's hard to get people to understand and trust him without ever meeting him, right? And so he wanted to do. I didn't call it a docuseries at that time. I called it a branded series where he was showing people how he goes through his process of not only taking the keys and then remodeling the house, but like truly allowing them to love the space that they're in. So I did that with him. We filmed that project in 6 months and then put it out. And he had a lot of success as well. And then I just continued from there. Everything came through referral. So it was someone that saw Kisha's project, or that saw the interior designs project, or that saw another real estate firm that I had worked with from Caldwell Banker. Like it was just people seeing my work, or someone or a client referring me to someone else, that allowed me to continue to work to where I can work with a Tracy Lynn who's built a multi-million-dollar empire, and she's thinking about, okay, how do I take this to another level? And it's someone that introduced me to her that takes it to that allows us to create the docuseries. So it was what I learned from working with Kisha, because I remember I only made $3,000 off of that project.
Right.
Off of part one. I ended up making altogether about $30,000 from, we did 3 parts. So part 1 through 3, because obviously I learned after 3,000 to charge more.
Yeah.
But more than that, what I learned was I needed to share my own story. So when I was working with clients, or I would, get a client from referral, I wasn't sharing my story. I was just thinking about, okay, how can I tell your story? But there wasn't a strong connection built for them to even say, hey, I trust you and you're the right person to tell my story. That was the big shift for me. It was not only just charging more and understanding marketing and sales, because I did that. I went back and learned marketing and sales. But it was also just like, okay, Jude, who are you? And why should I choose to do business with you versus any other filmmaker that I may meet on my journey? Like, why you? And it was more about telling my own personal story of starting at 17 years old. And I even told the story of like, look, my first 5 years, I barely made money every year until Kisha's project. And so it gave me a story. Kisha's project, ironically, gave me a story to tell, but it's only when I started sharing my story that things really started to shift in my business.
Yeah. That's really cool. So let me ask you something. That's the other thing, when you're shooting these documentaries, when you get together and you say, hey, we're going to shoot this. Yeah. I'm assuming you create a storyline or some type of storyline on how to tell the story.
Yeah.
But I'm assuming that there's a lot of boring stuff, because come on, like, running a business, a lot of it is emails and phone calls. Like how much of that can you show to make it exciting and interesting? So I'm curious about that. Like, how do you incorporate, I don't want to say storylines, because then it sounds like you're fabricating. We know you're not, but how do you make it interesting by making it, I guess, more interactive? Is that the right way to put it, I guess?
So here's the cool thing about this is all learned from doing the Kisha Dor docuseries. What came out of that was doing a process that I call road mapping. So with road mapping, what I do is before we ever press record, before we ever start filming the project, I spend 8 hours with the client a full day, and I get to learn everything about their business, the ins and outs. And then I learn about who they are personally. So I talk about their core values, their philosophies and beliefs, stories that they share. I ask them to tell me about like who they were, where they were born to where they are now, just so I can understand everything there is about their business and everything about who they are, right? And then from that is where I create the storyboard. I do create not necessarily a storyline, but just an idea of where are we looking to go with this. So like with Tracy Lynn, I knew she was building a new beauty brand, skincare brand. Even though she had a successful business already, she was building up this side thing. So I knew, okay, we're going to get her going back to school, where she didn't need to go back to school. So that was interesting to me. Like, why are you going back to school? And you already built something really successful. So she was going back to school. She was getting ready to announce it to her, so she runs a multi-level marketing company. So she was getting ready to announce it to the people that sells her products. And it's like, okay, I knew those things were going to happen, but what I didn't know was going to happen is what happens in part 4. And it's at that point, you just got to follow the story. Now, I'm not the type of filmmaker that spends every single day with my client. We kind of know there's certain things happening based on their schedule. We talk about that a few days in advance, few weeks in advance. And that's how basically I try to make the documentary interesting. So the way I say it is I take the mundane and make it exciting to watch. Yeah. And I do that through storytelling and through another process I call dramatic demonstration of proof. And so dramatic demonstration of proof is like really like, okay, how do we if you're telling me you're one of the best entrepreneurs in your field, in your niche, how do we prove that? And it's really getting to see not just, okay, you're making phone calls and doing emails, like you said, that's boring. But like, what are the things that we can see that people wouldn't normally see? So like with Tracy Lynn, I mentioned she goes back to school. So she goes to cosmetic school. And what I love that she allowed me to document and then show in the final docuseries is that she's messing up as she's doing makeup. Like she has no idea what she's doing and she's having a hard time. But she allows me to show that in a docuseries because, again, that's what makes it interesting. It's like, here's this wildly successful entrepreneur who's willing to be vulnerable and show, hey, I don't know what I'm doing all the time. Like, it's not always going to be easy. But that's how I make it interesting is we first go through road mapping. And from road mapping is how I'm able to, like, really just be a fly on the wall and be able to say, okay, what's your story? How do I share that story and make it as real as possible?
Yeah, like I mentioned the brand we just launched in October and we're working on and we're still testing a bunch of stuff and it's growing their sales, but it's nothing crazy yet because I haven't put, the pedal to the metal yet because we're working out the kinks and just, just kinks, manufacturing issues and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And, from day one, I was like, we got to document everything. So, my partner, her name is all over it. It's in fashion. I'm not going to say what it is because anybody would. I don't want people jumping all over the website and messing up my data, but one day I'll reveal it. But so we're documenting as much as we can. But right now, all there is to document is her working on some of the stuff because it's custom made. Mm-hmm. But you can only document so much of it because we don't have warehouses and all our meetings are in Zoom now and it's emails and phone calls and Slack.
Why not document that? I think there's beauty in showing where it got started. So since Kisha's project, the one thing I haven't had because of the kind of clients I work with is like where you see Tracy Lynn in her docuseries, she's already made it, right?
Right.
I think there's beauty in seeing the grit of not having a warehouse, of working out of maybe your garage or working out of, like, I always think to myself, what would it have been like to see Jeff Bezos from day one?
Oh, absolutely. So she'll go live and make some of the stuff live. So we're documenting. I mean, it's barely anything, but it's there. You know what I mean? That one day it can be grabbed and put together into something. Yeah. But I told her from day one, like, as soon as the process starts, like where we got to start hiring a bunch of people to help with this, I want a camera there 24/7. I don't care if it's a GoPro on the corner. Yeah. But I want all of this documented because I want to put it all on YouTube for people to see, like from nothing to whatever we get it to. Yeah. One, because obviously it helps the brand grow, and it gets it out there. But two, I want this story, especially she's a very smart woman. I want the story that anybody can do this, and she doesn't come from money. She doesn't come from anything crazy. Yep. I want everybody to see the story that if you just open a book and educate yourself and follow your passion to a certain extent. It has to work. It has to be something that people want, right? Yeah. If you put all of those pieces together and you put in the work, nowadays there is no excuse, dude. There's no excuse. Yeah. Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, everything. You don't even need ads to get started. Kids on TikTok are making like 6 figures just product placement. Yeah. I think, I would, so like, there's a couple things I think about as you're saying, like, how do you make that interesting and how do you, to me, it's like, you just mentioned that she's brilliant. So it's like, as she's making the products, I'm assuming she's making clothing, right? No, but it's it's handmade. It's not, it's the fashion niche, but it's handmade. I can tell you.
Okay, got it. So as she's making handmade products, it's like thinking through, why is she using the technique that she's using? Why is she like actually interviewing her as she's making it? To me, even if you don't use it right now, that's what makes it interesting later on down the road, is to see how far along her thinking has come. Yeah. Even back then, or even if like she's making the product and something goes wrong, this one doesn't work, so she has to throw it out. Like, okay, well, talk to me about that. Why did that not work? What is it that's not working? Like, what would you like to see that's better? Like, to me, that's the value in capturing these moments as they're happening, because you don't know what's going to be important to the story because you don't know what's coming on later on. So I'll tell you, so like Tracy Lynn, you've seen part one. In part one of the Tracy Lynn docuseries, there are parts that we show that I filmed that I didn't even know was going to be important in part 4. Now I can tell you
Gotcha.
that what's important that you probably saw was her walking through a warehouse. That
I saw that. Yeah.
warehouse is
Yeah.
so important to part 4 of the docuseries that happened.
She's going through the SKUs. She's going how many SKUs they have, how much space is taken up in the warehouse, and I know exactly what that warehouse is at too in Pompano.
It's ridiculously important to part 4 of the docuseries.
Yeah.
Right? But I didn't know that going into it. I'm just thinking, oh, we're just going to show the scale of her business, because that's really what I asked her for, was like, I get that you work out of an office, but you've got this other warehouse that's like off site. How do we show that to show people how really big this business is?
Right, right.
But that turns into something else later. So I think my point in saying that, though, is like, we're walking with her through this warehouse, right? She's talking about, the guy is talking about how there's so many SKUs now. They started with I think 1,000 SKUs, and they're up to 2,400 SKUs, and how the business has grown all that, like, this time. Again, that's important to showing, and she's telling the origins of starting the business. That's important to all of that, but then it becomes so much more important later on down the road. So to me, it's like, it's not just seeing it. That's why storytelling is so important. It's not just, let's shoot a couple clips of you working behind the scenes. Let's also hear how you're thinking about this as you're processing it, because that may be important later on down the road.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean, I got to finish it, but I think I have an idea of what might have happened at some point there.
Yeah,
but I'm sure she's fine now. Hopefully, knock on wood, because I like her, man. Her personality is awesome too. That's why I connected with her. I'm like, I like this woman. She's awesome, and she's funny too. When she's talking about the skinker, it's like, I'm not gonna say my age. But I was just laughing the whole time.
Yeah.
So you also worked with Steve Harvey, right? Oh,
did I lose you there?
Yeah, you lost me for a second. That's okay. I can edit it later. So you also worked with Steve Harvey at some point?
Yeah, I worked with Steve in 2000. I think it was 2014 to 2017. That was another 3-year project as well.
How did that happen? Steve Harvey, obviously pretty big deal, pretty successful.
Yeah. So I got connected through him through another client, ironically, out of Baltimore, who was working with him at the time. And Steve was getting ready to launch his book called Act Like a Success, Think Like a Success. Mm-hmm. And he was doing a tour at the time, and he wanted to document a Chicago stop, which I think, he's from Chicago. Well, he had a house in Chicago. I don't know if he's actually from Chicago, but he had his house and his business in Chicago. And so he wanted to document that stop. And I went there to document him doing a book signing for Act Like a Success, Think Like a Success. But what we ended up doing is actually so we're showing the book signing, but we're also telling the story of how he got to where he is, which is, he was homeless for 3 years.
Yeah, I know his story, which is
he was on tour, and so I show him doing the book signing, but in the background you're listening to that story. And I continued working with Steve years after that. It wasn't just documentaries that we did with him. I did he has a similar deal that Oprah had, which was like to do other shows, but she didn't have to be the host of the show. He had similar deals, and I did the pitch videos for that. But again, it was still all about the storytelling, like trying to introduce this concept through a story and not just, oh, here's a cool idea that we're going to do. And so that's how I ended up working with Steve for 3 years as well.
No, I saw one of the clips you sent me, and I was like, whoa, that's pretty awesome right there. So you got to spend a lot of time with him then, right?
Yeah. And the thing I love about Steve is he's the same on and off camera, right? Like, just as funny
that's what I was just going to ask you. Yeah.
Just as funny as he is on camera, he was funny. It's funny. The first time I met him, so obviously I didn't go through him to get hired. I went through his right-hand man. Of course. And the very first shoot that we got onto an elevator. Well, at first I started just filming him, and then we got onto the elevator, and he looked at me. He was like, it's not often I have a black dude filming me. And he just made a joke out of like, oh, here's my first time having to meet you. Like, I didn't know who you were, but now I get it. You're with me. We're on this elevator together. And so yeah, he's a really, like, I loved working with Steve for those 3 years.
Everybody knows Steve, just the faces that he makes all the time, and they're priceless.
But he's just like the same way he kind of is off the cuff on camera for like Family Feud or his radio show. Like, he's the same way in person.
He's a comedian at heart. Until he got started. His story, it's like, he was homeless, living out of the car, going to get a gig, and it's like that. I have so much respect for people like that, especially after I went through the 2010 crash and I lost everything. It's like those stories to me are like, dude, I get it. You deserve every penny, every success you got, like all of it, because I know how hard it is to get to that point. I'm nowhere near that point, obviously, but it's a lot of work, man. People don't get that, but
it is. Yeah, absolutely.
So for those of you, obviously, the people that hire you and your company to do the docuseries and these documentaries have, people who are pretty big and they already have something going. So for those people that are starting out, like I just told you, just launched this new brand. I gave you some of the stuff that I've been doing to keep track of it.
Yeah.
What is your recommendation for those people that are starting something out? Because what they can do is, it's like you said, like Kisha, put it on YouTube or put it on Facebook, Instagram, whatever.
Yeah.
What's your recommendation of how they should build the story, or what they should include, and how to tell that story to get people interested, in their brand, their products, and them, they're doing it, personally? Because I think a lot of this is the attractive character behind the brand,
It is.
Get attached to that.
I think so. Like, let's take, for example, what you're building, and the you mentioned that your partner is the face of the brand, right? And like I said, the first thing that I always think about is, okay, who is this person? Right? Like, so their core values, their philosophies and beliefs. When I say philosophies and beliefs, I often ask the question of, like, what does time mean to you? What does health mean to you? What does family mean to you? There's like a list of 10 questions I ask when it comes to philosophies and beliefs. And then I think of like stories of like, okay, how did you get started in doing this business? Why this business? Different stories, like what was the turning point that even led you to doing this kind of business? What I would recommend, so everybody that's listening to this has a cell phone in their hands, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even if you don't have a GoPro, you don't have a professional camera, you have a really great camera in your phone. And I would recommend just documenting that at the beginning. Documenting that, like I mentioned, with thinking through, okay, if you're doing something, talking through how you're doing it, even if you did it later on. Let's say you filmed behind the scenes of you, like whatever she's making by hand. And then later on, as she's watching it, she's doing an audio recording of like, here's what I'm thinking as I'm putting this together, right? That to me is like the most important thing. That's what I call behind the scenes dramatic demonstration. Other things that I would think about is social proof, right? So it's not just enough for you to talk about what you're doing, but how do other people talk about what you're doing? The same way you're talking through, like, she's brilliant and she has this great mind, and getting some of that on camera and seeing the people that actually have the products in their hand. What do they think about it? What does it represent to them?
Oh, I can't wait to get involved, because I'm going to be like, I'm going to tell all the stories of like, I got to keep her in a cage sometimes, because like she's an artist, man. So it's like, if you dealt with artists before, artists are their own breed, and I'm okay with that. But sometimes, like,
I just lost you again.
No, I was saying she's an artist, right?
No,
so
sure.
I got to keep her on a leash sometimes. And we laugh about this all the time, because she gets excited about stuff. It's like, we got to do this, we got to do that. I'm like, pull back. One thing at a time, baby steps. I promise you we'll get there.
Honestly, like, I would document that too, though, because I think there's a beauty in, especially in entrepreneurs. So I show this with Tracy Lynn. There's a beauty in the excitement that comes from being an entrepreneur. So like, I think of Stephen Georgi. He's another guy that I filmed. He's a copywriter. And as he's working on one of his online courses, I literally just spent the day with him just watching what he's doing to build the online course. And there's this moment he gets really excited. And he's very animated. Now, Stefan's not an animated guy. So you see this like 30 seconds of him snapping and just getting really excited. That to me is what allows me to really get to know this entrepreneur on a three-dimensional level. It's not just about the thing that they do. Like, I want to know your personality, especially when you're doing the thing that you're doing and you get really excited about it. Like, if she is going in, because there's a beauty in that in the beginning of when you're getting started with your business, you do want to do a million different things because you could see the bigger picture of what's getting ready to be created.
Yeah.
That to me itself is a story of like, here's where we got started and how excited I was. And it's so much different to where I see it happening now. So I call that transformation, right? So that's a transformational dramatic demonstration of like, here's where it was before, here's what we were thinking, but then here's where it really ended up going. You see a little bit of that in part one with Tracy Lynn, where she's talking about she's scared to launch this new brand because she doesn't know how well it's going to be received. She's been the jewelry lady for 20 years.
Yeah.
And here she is going into skincare. doesn't seem to even match. It took her 2 years to start the company, to even like get started with it, because she was so afraid, right? Like that to me is like those conversations are so important. And then seeing that as it's happening, it just makes it more real. But here's the real beauty in all of that. When you're documenting so early on, and then you're showing the real side of this person, why I love documentary filmmaking, it's because it really adds more value to the end product. The reason that Kisha Dor was able to make, Kisha Kayor now, why she was able to make $1 million in her first year is because she wasn't selling lipstick. The lipstick was blue, purple, green. It was lipstick that wasn't popular at the time, but she wasn't selling lipstick. What she was selling was women empowerment and being comfortable in your own skin. The only reason she started the company is because she couldn't find blue lipstick. She ended up making her own kind of lipstick. She mixed like 3 or 4 different products, wore it out one night, and people kept asking her, where did you get that? Where did you get that? And she realized other people want this. And it's like, but she felt so great about like she didn't want to walk out with anything other than blue lipstick. She felt comfortable being in her own skin. And that's what she sells. She doesn't sell lipstick.
Right.
And I think that's the beauty. When you start to tell these stories and you show like how she's being crazy behind the scenes and you show her getting excited and all these different things, what you end up buying is not the thing that the entrepreneur sells. You end up buying the entrepreneur. Like you want to just be in their world. And that's what I do for my clients. And that's why, these high level entrepreneurs who've already been extremely successful, they're still not shown in this light. And that's what I get to bring to the table for them.
I just had the biggest epiphany. I never even thought about this until literally this exact moment that we're talking right now. Literally popped in my head just now. Like, perfect example of telling your story. I remember sitting in college. I'm old. I'm 40. I was at Florida State. I still remember it. I was sitting in my place, hungover. I think it was like a Sunday after a football game or something.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there and I was watching Discovery Channel, and this documentary comes on for Jesse James, West Coast Choppers.
Mm-hmm.
When he was it was like the first one of everything. And it was him at the warehouse selling the motorcycles. No one was paying their invoices. They show him getting the tattoo that says "Pay Up, Sucker." Like literally when he gets it done, going through a divorce with his first wife, the kids, about to like lose the shop, struggling and you can see him like, I don't know. Like, I mean, people are not paying. I'm broke, like blah, blah, blah. And then that's when it aired. And then after that, West Coast Choppers just took off, man. I mean, his bikes at one point were like $350,000.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still a brand to this day. Jesse, everybody. Yeah. Then it was Monster Garage. I mean, the dude's super talented, obviously. Right. But now he has like, he took his craft to the next level, and now he makes guns. He makes like cooking knives, and he still makes cars, bikes, and the brand's still there, West Coast Choppers. And it's like I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it.
Yeah, it started with that. Again, I go back to Kisha because Kisha's been wildly successful at this. She's also on business number 3. Like, she started with cosmetics. She still has that business. She is selling fitness products. She went into the fitness business, and then also selling hair products, right? Same thing. It's like it started with the docuseries. She ended up getting a reality show after the docuseries, right? But here's one that really makes it real for everyone that's listening. I am pretty confident, whether you're a sports fan or not, you've seen The Last Dance. Michael Jordan's
dude. Absolutely. Right? My wife was like, "You don't even watch sports." I was like, no. You don't understand. It's Michael Jordan. Like, yeah, I never was into sport, but I watched Michael Jordan play because it's Michael Jordan. Like, I still don't watch basketball, but it's like,
as wildly successful as Michael Jordan is, right? And everybody knows him worldwide. The footage that came out of this never released content, the docuseries that came out of this never released content from 1998, right? What it did for his business and Scottie Pippen's business, with his business with the Nike Jordan brand, they had their first $1 billion quarter in 2020 after the docuseries came out.
I believe, right? Yeah.
Scottie Pippen,
that's crazy.
He was featured primarily. He was featured throughout the whole 10 episodes, but primarily in the first 2 episodes, he was in it a lot.
He lives in Fort Lauderdale too.
And he lives in Fort Lauderdale. Yeah.
Yeah. Him and Rodman too. I've run into Rodman all the time going out. Yeah.
Yeah. For his business, Scottie Pippen, I didn't even realize he still had shoes that was selling, but they saw a 50% increase in sales after the first 2 episodes came
Oh,
out.
have you seen his house? He's still making money. So.
Still making. But the beauty of it is like going back to show them back in the day, like telling their story of what it was like to be a part of the team, help them sell more, because people weren't buying the product. They're now more invested in who the person is and what they represent. And that's,
dude, I watched that live. I never watch anything live anymore. And I was like, I don't want spoilers. Like, I want to watch every single second of this thing. And it's like, it's because I study people like that. Like, there's a pattern between everyone that becomes highly successful. And obviously, Jordan, what's the one thing you get out of it? Hyper focus.
Yep. Hyper
basketball. There was no partying. There was nothing. Just basketball. And that was it, man. He never thought about money. Never care about any of that. He was just like, I'm gonna be the best basketball player, and like if somebody talks shit, I will show him up the next day. You know, it's like it's just relentless.
What's fascinating to me that I never knew, and I watched basketball, but I wasn't a big Jordan fan, was that he would make up in his mind things that people said to him on the court just so that he can compete at a higher level. Like, I remember there's the one story they told, the guy said something about Jordan's not the best or something like that, he said, and it was a fake story that Jordan made up in his head just so that he could compete at a high level, right? But it's like, it's those small stories that you don't even know until years later you're hearing Jordan talk about it and tell the story. It's like, yeah, that wasn't true, that wasn't real, right? Like, that's why when I mentioned to you, like, filming your partner, and like, even it might seem like it may not even matter, it might seem so small, but there's something later on down the road that's going to happen. And you're going to wish you had the footage of showing like where it started, where it really began. And so, yeah, that's anyone listening to this. How do you tell your story? You document it every day, and you talk about it every day. Like, what's going through your head? What's going through your mind? And really just do a brain dump of like, this is what's happening in this moment. This is what's happening in the scene. And that's what helps you really craft the story. What I get to do is, I go into it with a storyline and an idea, but at the end of the day, I still have to craft a story based on what really happened.
And make it interesting, because it's
and make it interesting. So I think I've had it happen before. I'm using old cell phone footage from back in the day that the client documented. Like, it didn't happen with Tracy Lynn, but it happened in some other docuseries that I've done where we're using old cell phone footage because it matters to the story. It's not just about using high level cameras for me. It's about what is it that's going to help us tell this story a lot better.
Makes sense. Now, let me ask you something. Since you watched the Jordan documentary, what did you think about the storytelling aspect of it, where they went back and forth? Like, it would throw me off. Like, I'm like, what? Wait a minute, where am I? Like, I thought we were here. What's going on here? Why are we back in '98?
It was very confusing. It's not a style that I would normally choose because it is. So it was artistic, but it might have been too artistic.
Yeah. I mean, I liked it. It just threw me off a couple of times because you will just jump in time and you're like trying to keep Yeah.
Right? And we're seeing how his security guard did get sick. And we're hearing from his security guard's wife, who's talking about, no, Jordan was there. Like, he took him to the hospital. He was at his house. Like, there's certain parts of that I love, because that's what I try to do in the docuseries that I create. Is like, I try to make the person, they're very successful, they're very high level, but like, how do I make them a little bit more human so that you realize that, they're widely successful, but you can be too. Like, that's the whole point. You're seeing behind the scenes of their story so that you can realize I could do, like,
he wasn't even that good when he was growing up. They were like, he just
wanted
like
to be a baseball player.
I mean, which makes sense now, that I go back and they're like, why is he going into baseball?
Right. Yeah.
But what I liked about it too is like the little things that, like you mentioned, the security guard, or like, you know, when he's locked up in his hotel, like people always, like, what's the first thing that people think of famous people or sport? Fame, money. I can do anything that I want. Obviously, I'm sure there's some kick-ass parties and, you know, you get all that stuff. But then we don't think about, and I'm guilty of this, we don't think of the human aspect of it, what we take for granted. You know, I can go out in downtown Fort Lauderdale. No one knows who I am. And I can pretty much do whatever I want and make an ass out of myself drunk in the middle of brunch, and who cares? Like, imagine if that was Michael. Well, first of all, Michael Jordan can't go and just walk down Las Olas. Right? Like, I mean, I've seen Rodman at places I've been at, and he gets every 30 seconds somebody's asking for autograph. The locals, we just used to it, so we don't care. You know what I mean? But like, you can see people going up to the poor guy every 30 seconds asking for a picture and an autograph. Like, and he talks about it in the documentary. It's like, I'm just locked up in my hotel room because I can't. If I go outside, I get mobbed. Like, I can't. And that's where, like, oh, he's an asshole to that. I'm like, dude, I will be too. Somebody was throwing cameras in my face, and they weren't even cell phones back then. Could you imagine now, like LeBron James going somewhere? Or, you know, I saw a clip with what's the football player, the soccer player, Ronaldo, where he goes out to grab a cup of coffee, and it's impossible. Like, he couldn't do anything anyway. So, all right. So telling this story, document everything, put it together. Dude, I've had you. It's been an hour already. I could talk about this all day if you can't tell already.
I love talking. More than anything, though, I do want to make sure people understand that, I'm a filmmaker, I'm a storyteller, but this is something that you can do yourself. And like you said, like, it's all about documenting the story every single day, right? Like, we all have a cell phone. We all have, like, there's been moments where I can't get a camera into a place. I use my cell phone. Yeah. It's just as good to get the story, because what's most important is not how good it looks, it's how the story is told. And that's what people really connect with. And so stories about moments, they're about moments, and start, like, capturing these moments in time that are happening so that you can tell more about it later. Like, we talked about Michael Jordan. They sat on that footage for 20 years. It was never something that was crafted together. It's not like the documentary was done 20 years ago and then they're just now putting it out. They just had a bunch of footage that was captured from back in the day that they crafted into a story in 2020. So, that more than anything, just make sure to capture the moments. And that's how you tell stories, is through specific moments in time. That is so true. And I don't keep track. I need to start recording more on my end. I mean, my partner's doing well, but I need to do it on my end because I'm doing all, like, the boring stuff, but it's the stuff that makes it grow too. You know what I mean? I need to do that on my end, because editing is magic, man. You grab, any good editor can grab all that footage and make a story out of it and put it all together and make it pretty awesome. So but I'm telling you, once we open that first warehouse, I'm gonna be like, Jude, what's up, man? Where you at? Because I really want to do it right. So. I'm available. As long as I'm not at my 5 client quota, I'm definitely available. Yeah, that's right. That's right. And even if you are, we can wait. That's okay. We'll find a way. We'll keep recording on our cell phones. But anyway, where can everybody find you, man? The links will be in the description, obviously. Best place to find me is judecharles.co. If you want to learn more about storytelling and like how to take it to another level, persuasion, I teach all about that through my email list. But again, you can find all that at judecharles.co. That is the best place to connect with me. My phone number's on there. I'm not, like, again, I work with high level people, but I'm not someone that's not easily accessible at the same time either. So reach out to me. Let's talk. Let's have a conversation. Even if, like Christian's saying now, like, he may not be ready now, but years down the line, he knows who to call. And so let's start that conversation early. There you go, man. Go find Jude if you want to craft a story of your journey. I mean, there's no better time to do it. So, Jude, again, man, thank you so much. I truly, truly enjoy the conversation. Next time you're working on a project, let me know, and I want to have you on again and hear that story and watch it when it's ready. So, again, thank you so much, everybody. Check out the links in the description. Thank you so much for watching and listening. And Jude, I will talk to you later, man. Thank you. Thank you.